To start everything off, just want to introduce myself. My name is Alan Chan. I'm running this interview for Building Tensions. A bit about my background. I've been in the live streaming space, crypto space for both about 8 years or so. Been venturing more recently in the last like 2 to 3 years into this supernatural alien and science field. And I know that Daz is one of the kind of most well-known remote viewers out there. I've been following his content for a while, so reached out to Daz to kind of have this discussion on alien simulation theory and remote viewing in particular. So before we get started, I will hand it off to you, Daz, to introduce yourself.
Hi there. Yeah, it's great to be here chatting with you this evening. My name's Daz Smith. I've been a remote viewer for, I think, going on 28 years now, but I've been a practicing psychic since the age of 10. So that's probably going on around about 34 years or so. Not sorry, 34, 44 years. I'm also into cryptos, as you said, working for crypto viewing, which has now changed its name to Future Forecasting Group, where we make predictions. That's pretty much it, really. Yeah, I'm interested in all kinds of things: UFOs, mysteries, and especially, my core subject, which is remote viewing.
Yeah, so on the topic of remote viewing, we were just talking about it briefly, but maybe if you could go a bit deeper on how you got into remote viewing. I know for many this is like a fringe topic, and for me, how I got into it is through aliens. I've obviously seen
Yeah.
uh, crypto viewing and future forecasters work prior to that, but I kind of like took it for a grain of salt. But everything kind of changed once you start to explore it into this whole alien related field, frequencies and energies, and then you start to really understand these things. So maybe you can share your background on remote viewing a little bit more in depth. You started when you're 10, you mentioned.
Yeah. I started training in what I call classical psychic techniques when I was 10. And that was things like mediumship, clairvoyance, clairaudience, divination using things like tarot, sand, tea leaves, all that kind of stuff. And then in 1992 at a UFO conference, I first heard about remote viewing, and I made it my life's goal then to learn how to do that. But for the people out there that don't know much about remote viewing, my definition of it is remote viewing kind of like the natural intuitive ability, which can be enhanced by training. And with that, we can perceive and retrieve what I call multi-form information, and that's independent from us as remote viewers. And that can be anywhere in time, space, and dimensions. And what makes it different from normal classical stuff is that everything we do through remote viewing is what we call under a scientific protocol. So it has rules, and they're basically the rules are that it's planned, it's always done blind, the data is always recorded, and then we have feedback afterwards to check against our data to assess accuracy.
Did you start to learn about and like practice with remote viewing following the CIA technique, or was it a different technique?
Yeah. I started training in 1996. I was trained by a special forces guy that was coming. He was commuting back from Russia, where he was teaching emergency medical techniques back to the US. He trained me in London for 4 days over a period of 2 weekends in what we call CRV, or controlled remote viewing. And that was a method developed for the Stargate program, CIA, DIA, and many other alphabet soup agencies. And it was created by the famous artist, psychic, and author Ingo Swann from 1976 to 1985, and they used it until 1995 until the program was closed down.
How did you find your particular, I guess, mentor teacher?
Well, I only spent 4 days with him. He was definitely like the special forces type because they have a certain way about them, the way they hold themselves, the way they move, their body build, their confidence, all that kind of thing. And he was a great teacher. We got on very well. It's a lot to take in the 2 weekends that I took the course. Most people out there, including myself, because I've gone on to train my own slightly different version of CRV now, which I call Flow. Um, generally you need a year or two to be trained in it. For example, my training I'm doing at the moment, the mentoring I'm doing, is a 13-month intensive course that the students have to go on. So it was a lot to get into 4 days, but it gave me a small foundation to then build on over the literally this last 27 years.
When you first started with the whole psychic stuff with your family, were you like a believer? How did you what did it take to get you really on board outside of just going through the motions?
Yeah, good question. I mean, my history is different from pretty much every other remote viewer out there on the circuit in that I was brought up in a household where my mother was a trained spiritualist medium, and everything we did was at what we call the local spiritualist church. So from a very early age, literally from under the age of 10, probably from about 8 years on old onwards, on a Sunday evening, I would be at the church watching uh, people, mediums, claim to talk to dead people and give out messages. So for me, growing up in that kind of environment, it just made me hungry to learn more. And of course, being in that kind of household as well, I was lucky in the fact that my library of books available to me in that household was a huge library of books on esoteric arts, and not a lot of people grow up with that kind of library to
Yeah, yeah.
access. Really.
Are those books banned?
No, you can
Okay.
get, I mean, yeah, you can get those books pretty much anywhere. Yeah, more so back in the old days, but now that we have Amazon, you can even track down some really rare versions of books from the 1800s, 1900s, and so on.
Yeah, I feel like at least from the perspective of the system that we're living in, it looks like there's a lot of censorship going on. So I wasn't sure if there's anything that allows you to access the truth or anything that the those that run the system don't want you to see. I feel like it would be
Yeah.
banned. But you're saying those books are still available.
Yeah. I mean, humans are inventive. They always find a way around any kind of censorship system. So there back in those days, books were and secret writings and secret methods and techniques were distributed in pamphlets in almost like zine type magazines. If they hand to hand rather than through big publishing houses. And it's the same nowadays. It's just that we have the internet nowadays with Discord groups and bulletin boards and downloadable PDFs.
Got it. So you started at your church, and
Yeah.
from there, I guess you got a lot of exposure through watching different people perform different types of practices and channeling energy to kind of see some type of outcome. Well, when did you get started with it, and when did you feel like you could channel some of these energies and abilities into some type of I guess skill?
For me, it was it started at an early age. I guess because it's a bit like in the Star Wars films, really. This kind of ability does go down the generational line. So myself and my siblings, we all from a very early age had weird things happen around us. Lots of poltergeist activity, all that kind of stuff. So it started all for me from literally from as far back as I can remember, from the age of like 6 or 7. I started reading and taking informal training from the age of 10. But I took what I call classical proper training from the age of 16 in classical techniques. And that went right on to when I found remote viewing in 1995, 96. And then, I've been doing that ever since. And I've pretty much abandoned all the classical techniques because they just aren't as good, I find, as the formal CRV remote viewing approach. That is way more accurate in getting intuitive data.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask that next. Like, how did you decide to move on to remote viewing compared to some of the other things? But yeah, you decided to move on to remote viewing because based off of your experience, it was the most effective.
Yeah. I mean, if I can give you a kind of analogy for this, and it's one I use often, quite a lot of classical psychic stuff, where people get like an inkling for something or a gut feeling. It's very spontaneous, so that they're not in control. It's almost like being in a car and you're the passenger, and the process or the psychic thought is the one in control of the car driving it. So you're looking at the window, you see something, but you can't, you're not in control, so you can't stop the car and get a better look. It's just like it's gone after an instant. What the remote viewing process does is it switches that on its head, and you become the driver of the car. So if you do get some kind of psychic kind of thing happening, you can drive to that, and then you can not only drive to it, you can stop or you can slow down, you can reverse and get more information. You're in total control of the entire process now.
How does that compare with like card reading, the tarot card reading? Because that is a controlled environment as well, right?
It's controlled, but it's still spontaneous information. It decides what it wants to give you. The way we're taught with remote viewing, and especially CRV or controlled remote viewing, you're the person in control of the entire process. So I determine how much information I get and when I get it and how I get it.
Okay, that makes sense. So onto remote viewing. When you after you kind of got started with that 2 weekend course that you went on, and how old were you, and how did you take it from there?
Yeah, so I did that in '96. So I was 26 at that stage. Once I did the 2 week course, I just knew. Well, I knew before that really. Um, I knew this was the thing that I've been looking for all my life. And it was almost, I knew what my destiny was, and this was my destiny to be spending the rest of my life doing remote viewing. Um, so literally, and this was pre-internet as well. The internet was very young in 95, 96. You had a 14 4K modem and you're getting stuff down at 4 kilobytes a second. So, it took you like 3 minutes just to get a black and white picture on the screen. So back in those days, the only way we could communicate were through email news groups and bulletin boards. So I just hooked up with loads of other people interested at the time, which luckily for me just happened to be the people that were the CIA spies, the people out at the Stargate unit. I managed to hook up with those, and then ask them lots of questions. And I've spent the last 27 years kind of working with most of them as well.
Cool, cool. So for remote viewing, what do you see as like the biggest barrier for people to accept the reality of it? Because it's something that you do, that you've gotten success with, that I've been following your group of friends that have been predicting different things through remote viewing.
Mhm.
What what do you think people what do you think is like the biggest type of obstacle that it needs to be overcome for people to start to really understand and grasp the reality of it, and like heart being able to
Yeah.
do something like this that our science still isn't there's a lot of things that our science isn't able to comprehend yet. I think that's
Yeah.
due to the limitations of our math and our physics and other types of sciences. I think that will change in the future based off a lot of the data that we're seeing. But as of right
Yeah.
now, it's not there yet. But what have you seen that has been pushing people over the edge?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's different for everyone, really, and your needs in life. The best way, though, for anyone to get over whether this works or not is literally just take a couple of minutes out of their life and try it for themselves. Because pretty much everyone out there, to one degree or another, will have the ability to harness intuition and remote viewing. So it only takes a couple minutes to try it for themselves. So that's the biggest hurdle. And once people try it for themselves, and they get the holy shit kind of this actually works kind of feeling, that's when you can start to take it to the next level and make use of it in your daily life, for simple things like finding car parking spaces, to the bigger
Oh,
things
okay.
like I'm doing. And the bigger things like I'm doing, like in the past I've worked for nearly every major police organization in the US, finding missing people and stuff.
What would be the best way is there like a simple way to get started? Because you say it only takes a couple minutes.
Yeah, well, they could go to my website. I have a website called remoteview.com, and on that, under the media section there, I have created a very simple template that people can download. and fill in to do a simple remote viewing session. And also, there's an instructional video on how to do it as well. So that's one way they do it. But there are plenty other ways out there that people can try as well. But that would probably be the best and easy one for them to start with.
It's remoteview.com.
Yeah, my main remote viewing website is called remoteview.com, and it's a vast resource with tens of thousands of pages of Stargate CIA documents on there, remote viewing sessions, videos, huge amounts of resources, and it's all free.
Okay, great. Cool. I'm on it right now. I'll definitely share this too uh, on our socials and some of my friends as well. Cool. So
But
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if people really want to just get an idea of where this can go, for the past 15 years, I've also created a magazine, remote viewing magazine. And what we do in there, we put articles and we put real world examples in there as well. And that's called Eight Martinis, and you can get that from 8martinis.com. And I think we're up to something like 18 issues, and they can download all those for free as well.
Cool, cool. 8martinis.com.
8martinis.com, yeah. And that's based on a famous quote from Ingo Swann, uh, and it basically it came from inside the CIA, and essentially some CIA analysts and spies saw remote viewing data, and it was so shocking that they had to go out and have 8 martinis to recover.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Why was the Stargate program like discontinued if it was effective?
Yeah, there are various explanations for that, and it's a multi-form reason, really. It was mismanaged for a number of years, and it always had problems getting funding. Although it did well in that it got funding year after year from 1972 to 1995. So that's 23 years. It got continual funding. But it was in a climate in the 90s where the CIA was being brought to task and some other agencies as well, for having some of their more what people call their more dodgier kind of like programs going on. And there were lots of political things going on in the background as well. So yeah, it was a mismanagement, political reasons, and the fact that people put in freedom of information requests that had to be adhered to. So some of the information was breaking out anyway. So the CIA kind of preempted it and exposed it in its own way and made it look like it was a bit of a non-goer. But that's just a false thing. That's the kind of thing the CIA and those organizations do is disinformation. I mean, if it wouldn't have worked, they wouldn't have continuously paid for it for 23 years.
Yeah, yeah. I I can definitely see that. So on the topic of the remote viewing accuracy, I know we were just talking about that before, and I believe I've seen some of the work, at least from Future Forecaster Group. It was like something like over 50% better than chance that you guys were getting accurate. Or maybe you can
Yeah,
tell me
most
a
of the
bit
time, yeah.
more about that and like what is your take on it, and then I'll
Yeah.
share my take on it.
Yeah. On normal targets, and what I call normal targets are the targets that are based either now in current time or targets that are based in the past. So, for example, if you want me to remote view, what's happening right now at the Eiffel Tower, I would be very accurate. If you want me to remote view what was, how the pyramids were built, 2,000 years ago, I would be highly accurate in that as well. And I would expect most talented remote viewers on targets that are based now, present time, and past, to be well over 78% accurate. So I would say 70 to 90% accurate on past targets. The issue we have is that we don't seem to be as accurate on future based targets, and that may be for other reasons. But I can just tell you, I don't know what everyone else's accuracy is, but I can tell you that my accuracy, looking at 3 years worth of targets from 2000 to 2003, on looking at targets that are looking ahead a certain amount of time, and it could be a varied amount of time, but I'm roughly running it only 65% accurate on future based targets,
Okay,
so
yeah,
slightly less accurate.
that's pretty good. And I guess so. One of my theories on why the accuracy isn't always there, which we just discussed, is the kind of like multiverse timeline where likely if multiple remote viewers are seeing the same type of thing, but it doesn't actually happen, it may have happened just not in this timeline. And then yeah, you had a different take on it as well.
I think that that might be a possibility. I also know that a lot of people, and I've been told, and we've been told, like because we do most of our predictions through future forecasting group, and I've also had conversations with, and I know that there are people very high up in government and other circles that do look at our data, and it's quite possible that some of them act upon our data, which could then change, the future to some degree. But yeah, as we discussed, we don't really know what's going on with any of this. It's not just remote viewers that have less accuracy looking at predictive targets. It seems to be all intuitive attempts. Hover around the 50 to 65-ish%, over long term of getting accuracy. And again, it might be other reasons as well. It might be because the probabilities of all the events that are happening in the future need to, as you get closer to the event, coalesce into a single event rather, so the farther out you look at it, 6 months out, there might be 1,000 different scenarios that might happen, but as you get closer to the event itself, that might slow down and singularize into a single event that happens right at the moment of, I would say the moment of crossover to when the time actually happens. But again, it's just a theory. We don't know how any of this works. Some of the top scientists out there actually believe that all we're doing as psychics and remote viewers is just looking into our own future in a way, and getting an idea of what we will get as feedback. I don't know if that's true either.
God, yeah, I don't have anything to add to that because I don't know either.
Yeah,
But
we just don't know. And when the people at the CIA and the Stargate were looking at this from 72 to 95, they spent 23 years trying to find, how does this work? And they ended the program not knowing anymore. Other than they came up with some good ideas based around what makes really good targets, or what um, gets a remote viewer or a psychic to look at a target more, and that was things like entropy. So lots of energy, motion, and change at targets seem to attract psychics and remote viewers a lot more. So entropy seems to have a play in this, but I think anything else is still up for grabs to science to explain. I do think though that quantum physics and entanglement is coming close to giving us some answers to this.
yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that since I think our science is on the cusp of breaking out into
Yeah.
something that will definitely propel and provide answers to a lot of things that we're so
Yeah,
close to getting, but just not there yet.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that we're on the edge of quantum computers being a reality, and within in the next decade, we might all have quantum computers of some kind in our own homes. So, yeah, I think things are going to change really fast, a bit like they are, with the new AI technologies.
Yeah, yeah. AI has been pretty. I would not have been able to consume this much information in such a short period of time without AI.
Yeah, I'm finding AI absolutely mind blowing. I can see, and being a person that looks at the future, but also a person that's a, addicted by technology. I can see where things are going. I know within 10 years we will all have Elon Musk automated AI robots in our houses doing chores, being personal assistants, all kinds of stuff. We're on the cusp of all that becoming an absolute reality.
On the topic of remote viewing subjects and I guess the targets, do remote viewers set certain boundaries to protect themselves to not get in trouble? Like you don't want to
Some
be
remote, yeah,
looking into government, CIA, black ops type of stuff with yeah,
this
get
is where it gets complicated. So, I mean, there's two different types. Like, if you're talking about dangerous targets, like targets that can harm you, like, so
what do you
if
mean by harm?
some well there's some remote viewers they find, and again this leads on to the UAP stuff as well, like things going on at Skinwalker Ranch. We now know a phenomenon called the hitchhiker effect that happens to some people that have UAP or paranormal events. In that, some of these events can be harmful and damaging to them physically. But not only that, there's this virability that happens as well. So they can actually take some kind of influence from those events home and then pass it on to their family members and friends, and then their family members and friends pass it on to someone else. So paranormal events and esoteric events do have a virability rate to them,
Well,
and we
what are
don't
you
know why that
passing
happens.
on?
We don't know what you're passing on, other than maybe what's creating the event knows and sees who you're connected to, and then it attracts, and then they have paranormal events as well.
Oh, so they start to experience things. That's what you're passing on.
They start to experience things as well. Yeah, your family and friends, but some of the people, like, as we know, that have had events with UAPs specifically, balls of light, that kind of thing. They have actually had physical damage to their brains and their bodies, causing cancers and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, that's interesting. What about like government related stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of us doing remote viewing do look at government facilities, because we can't. They can't really sue us without admitting that remote viewing actually works, because you can't sue us for something that they're saying in court doesn't is not real. Um, but there is an ethical point to this. That we're constantly asking ourselves as remote viewers: is it ethical for us to you know find people at target sites wherever they may be in the world, and then move into their consciousness and read their thoughts and write down their thoughts, their loves, all their interests, all this kind of stuff. So we always have this ethical conundrum that we are always fighting against. But most of us as remote viewers, because we can't pick our targets, you see, because we're working blind, we never know what we're working on. So we have to try to work with people that we can trust to be ethical on our behalf. But most of us as remote viewers have been tasked against things like Area 51, the next latest technology, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, so just to clarify, in case there's people that don't understand, there's always a middleman between the remote viewers that manages the target and keeps the target blind to the viewers. So this way, there's
That's
no.
the best way to work with a middleman. But sometimes we do work direct with the clients. But we have to inform them. Like if you were my client, I'd say, don't tell me anything about the target. You can't tell me anything up front. Just write down what the target is on a sheet of paper or something. Seed it in an envelope. Give it a random number, and just give me the random number. And that's my focal point, is the random number. I want no other information whatsoever from you.
Got it.
Yeah, it's called working blind. So we all endeavor to work as blind as possible to what the actual real target is going to be.
Yeah, I think if the more accurate you are, especially if it's blind, I guess the more likely people are to believe in the reality of it.
That's the best part of it. But not only that, is weirdly, the more you tell a remote viewer, the worse they get data wise. For example, like if I told you, I want you to remote view for me tomorrow the Eiffel Tower. You already, the moment I say Eiffel Tower to you, you have images in your head, you have thoughts in your head, pictures, words that from your day to day life that's associated with the Eiffel Tower. So it's hard to get those out of your head now. And that's not psychic information, that's your accumulated information. So it's very hard to put that to one side now that I've said that to you, and for you to give me psychic information about the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, moving on from the remote viewing topic onto another interest of yours, which is this UFO aliens.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you want to start this topic?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was actually interested in UFOs before I heavily got into remote viewing. Um, I'm lucky enough to live in the UK here, and I'm also lucky enough to live in a region that's very close to a lot of ancient sites. Stonehenge, Avesbury. So we have a lot of those artifacts here, and in the late 80s, around about 89 onwards. We had this phenomenon here in the UK called crop circles, where we had these big glyphs that came out in the fields, and that literally, seeing that in the paper and then getting in a car and going straight out to see those and experiencing
Oh,
them live.
you've seen it.
Oh, not only seen it, I've been inside them. I've been inside crop circles that have where I've been the first person in there before anyone else has been in there and stuff. So I've seen many of them. So actually being a part of that and seeing that and feeling that in the in 89 to 91 period, I did most of that. That opened my eyes to the whole UFO phenomenon really, and I spent the next 20 years hardcore researching that, and I'm still interested in it nowadays, but I'm kind of on the sidelines interested nowadays, and I use remote viewing to tackle it rather than looking at
Crop
it
circles or
in and
or UFOs?
uh, both, all of it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all connected. Like there is no really there's no distinction or there's no distance between things like remote viewing, being psychic, crop circles, aliens. It's all connected in this kind of smorgasbord of phenomenon that's happening.
Yeah, that's what I've come to the same conclusion
Yeah.
with as well. So basically, through my research, I started this project, building tensions, to just try to draw more light on aliens and the theoretical hierarchy structure of the shadow overlords of humanity. And didn't
Yeah.
really have much information on it, but I thought it'd be fun to look into it. And then you start to look in. We've always heard about the reptilians, and everyone's saying like these reptilians are kind of ruling over our our entire planet, and most of the structures, the financial system, entertainment system, pretty much anything that you can think of has been infiltrated and controlled by this group of elite people, and supposedly this elite people are being controlled by reptilians. And for some reason, there isn't just like much information you can get on the reptilians, at least how they look. I think that's
Yeah.
been very difficult. But gray aliens, you can get a lot of information on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like there's been millions of abductions with gray aliens, and started off with that, and then you start to look into, I think a lot of people, Cliff talks about like the Elohim. You look into the Elohim, you realize the Elohim are pretty much the same thing as the Anunnaki, and then you go down that path and look. I think when you start to research the beginning of ancient civilizations and then the beginning and origins of man and these religions, then you start to like you saw they're all the same, and I was like, wow, they're all the same. Wow, what the heck is going on? I never knew they're all the same. Then like, what if all these religions tell the same origin story of man?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, we still have different religions, so there must be a reason why we have different religions. So let me look into all of these other religions more, study everything about them in between. AI was really helpful. Then I started going into the end, like the afterlife, all of the different planes and realms.
Yeah.
Like they're all the same. Like,
Yeah.
if
Absolutely. There are these solid core threads that run through all of it. And, the biggest thread really of all of it is that, we are in some way created by. I don't like to use the word aliens because we don't know if they're alien yet. And if they created us, I think they've been here longer than we have. So we're probably more alien than they are.
what word do you
But
like to use?
I just call them non-humans, I think, because non-human
Okay.
entities at this stage, yeah,
Okay.
NHIs or non-humans, and because the ones that I've seen and encountered in remote viewing and in my other psychic work, you know, there's just so many different variants of them as well. Some are physical, some are non-physical, some look like humans, some look like demons, some look like nothing whatsoever and clouds of light. So there's a huge, big, vast array of things that are going on there. So yeah, aliens doesn't quite fit for me, but these non-humans anyway absolutely created us and created religions around the world to help control us, but also in some ways to try to guide us as well. But I think that's been manipulated as well by humans because along the way humans got greedy, they got selfish, they like to humans like to manipulate other humans. But that might also be part of their plan as well. The reptilians, though, I have to be honest, in everything I've done psychically, many times remote viewing UAPs and bits and pieces, I've encountered grey type beings, but I've never in any of my psychic travels once ever in all my years seen anything reptilian yet.
Yeah, there's just it's very difficult to find information on them, but I mean the information on how they look, but you see a lot of written information on them. So
Mm.
that is very, very interesting. So I wanted to ask you on because you were talking about Pat Price at one point and a lot of his research and looking into his research about for the longest time how these aliens have infiltrated pretty much the fabrics of our society and helped us build everything, potentially build everything or just infiltrate everything,
Yeah.
maybe a combination of both, for how the entire planet is run from all of the government politicians, like all of the major government politicians, they have some type of control over it, to government leadership, to financial system, the entertainment system, the education system, like all of this stuff that they're entangled with. And what are your thoughts on that? Because you didn't share too much previously.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's pretty new information, really. Most people out there have heard of the famous remote viewer called Pat Price, and he did some work for SRI and then for the CIA, and then he mysteriously died in the I think 75, yeah, 1975, just a few weeks after he went to work for the CIA in full. Um, but during that time, he did lots of his own remote viewing on UAPs or UFOs they were called at the time. You know, because it was the early 70s, they were starting to hit the press quite a bit. And one of the projects he did, uh, he decided to go out and look to see what they were actually doing on the planet and where their bases were, all this kind of stuff. And he produced a 47-page remote viewing document um, that I managed myself and several others managed to acquire a few months back. And it was essentially kept, it's been kept secret for well since 1973. So what's that? Nearly 50 odd years or so. Um, and it might reach the light of day very soon. Although me and the guys that managed to get a copy of it decided not to at this point because we were worried, or at least I was worried, that we were being manipulated in by someone else to get this information out there, and I don't want to be manipulated in that way. But I'm happy to talk about it a little bit. And the documents are very in depth from a person that we all know is a very talented remote viewer. Very accurate. This guy got very accurate data where he'd be able to go inside the file cabinets and read project names off of documents. He was that good, and he details in this 47 pages that there were several, I think at least two races of non-humans that were interacting with us on this planet, and they were having a bit of a conflict between themselves, and we were kind of caught up in the middle. This is how he was seeing it in 1972, 73. Anyway, he details the bases where they're working from. He devices. He goes into detail about the craft they're flying and what they're doing. And in some of the documents, at least one of them, when he's looking at the Bermuda Triangle, he looks at the Bermuda Triangle and asks what's going on there, and he kind of describes an encounter with a plane that's happening, and he describes how their technology captures the plane, dissolves the plane, gets rid of it, but also how they capture the humans, and they take body parts and bits and pieces from the humans back to where they come from. He didn't say what they're doing with them, but he does go into depth, and that's what we call human mutilations. And it's come up a couple of times in UAP research over the last few decades, but it's a topic that's not really discussed. There is another topic, cattle mutilations, which you
Yeah.
can get lots of information on.
Hmm.
But when it comes to
I thought they
humans,
returned to humans. Most of them. That's where we get the abduction stories for. That's like the whole Eisenhower Treaty with.
not the ones that he saw in this plane. Then
Okay.
why what was happening in the Bermuda Triangle? That was more of an area where they were taking humans, and he details that they were taking heart and lungs for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um, I'd I'd like to share a theory I have with you, and get your take on it, but it goes deep down the rabbit hole.
yeah, go for it. Yeah, we like rabbit holes.
Okay. So, picking up where I left off, I found out the beginning of religions, the origin story is the same. You go to the end, the afterlife realm, different planes, dimensions, relatively similar, maybe different words, different translations of different things. You see them talk about karma, good deeds, bad deeds, just different translation of the word karma. And I've come to the conclusion that all of the religions are pretty much the same. They're the same kind of guidebook for how to play this game of the simulation that we're in, and it's just translated by different people or coming from a different period, having different types of vocabulary, and some people have different agendas as well that may affect it. But overall, the overarching theme and foundation seems to be the same, which leads me to believe the simulation is potentially legitimate. But you did mention there that these aliens are cutting based off the information I have. That is what I'm getting as well. So there may be some manipulation, or sorry, the non-human entities manipulation may be legitimate. I've also been looking into this whole like Anunnaki, Elohim, and some of the stories that align up with the Abrahamic biblical text. There was like some type of fight up there between the gods of the
Yeah.
Anunnaki. They started off benevolent, and then there was some fight, and after the fight, the gods kind of then got a lot meaner, split us up, changed our skin colors, and started to teach us to war, create weapons and money. All of these different things
Mhm.
taught us potentially. I believe it's a flawed mathematical scientific system where it doesn't allow us to harness the same type of energies that they can, which is why we can't do certain things right now. We're kind of blocked in science. Uh, the theory is, if you, for most people that can in the western part of the world that probably understand the Bible a bit more, there's a fight between these Anunnaki or the angels, and
Yeah.
and then one side was casted down or potentially won or came down. So at the end of the day, one group of the Anunnaki or non-human entities, angels, they came down here, and it
Yes.
seems like they've been here manipulating society for thousands of years to their benefit. And then if you align this information with things like what Bob Lazar is saying, other government whistleblowers about how our like souls are being harvested or harnessed, or our bodies are just containers, and if these fallen angels are infiltrating our society and manipulating our society to drive us towards a lot of sin, which empowers them, which keeps them in this this struggle between good and evil dominant, then that's the understanding that I have been able to put together of this game. If you want to play the game, which you don't have to
Mhm.
play the game, if you want to play the game, there's it looks like two dominating forces that are um, against each other, good and evil, and the evil side is winning. They have it. It also, if you align this with a lot of the hypothetical contract signings with the devils that people are doing all around the world, like these wealthy and famous people, they're selling their soul to the devil for something. And I used to think it was ridiculous, but now like a lot of the stuff is starting to line up where they're just infiltrating every single um, influential aspect of our civilization and setting us up to sin, to basically lower our karmic points to drive us down there to empower them. That is the theory.
Okay. I think a lot of that's happening. The thing is, we can't prove any of this, can we? One way or another. I do think a lot of that's happening. I think it's a lot more, personally, from my experience, is a lot more complex than that, though, as well. I do believe there is some kind of very strange karmic battle going on, but I think it's not only acted out here on Earth. I think it's acted out, throughout the entire universe. Uh, and I actually had conversations with non-humans many years ago where they tried to explain this to me, and they were explaining how the universe is always striving for balance, and that sometimes the balance shifts in one direction or another. So it never is a perfect balance, but it wants to try to attain a perfect balance, and that's why we have that kind of symbolism, in things like the symbols. We have the with the
Yin yang
wheel,
or something.
yin yang, that kind of thing. That's trying to attain that kind of balance kind of symbol, and it's with the caduceus kind of symbol and all kinds of stuff like that. So, and we might be going through a stage right now where it's a little bit darker than it is a little bit more light. But I truly believe, as you said, that there was a in the old days there was a battle where the angels fell, and as they said, they came into the wives of man and created half angelic beings, and that's probably where we got all the other kind of weird beings like giants and cyclopses and senators, all that kind of stuff, where they were doing genetic manipulation. So I believe all that kind of stuff was going on. I just don't know some of the hardcore stuff, you know, if it's about sin, all that kind of stuff. I haven't seen any evidence of that kind of stuff myself. From what I've seen and read about when people die and they pass over, there is no judgment really over. Even if you've killed 100 people, there's no judgment over of you other than you need to learn more lessons in life. There's no kind of like, oh, you're going to hell in a different direction for that kind of thing.
Oh,
It's
I've seen that though for like a lot of near-death experiences where people go to hell and they're just like repenting down there for
I haven't come across that myself.
okay. But
Yeah.
but you've seen things that look like demonic entities?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I even wrote a book. One of my first books I wrote was one called "Surfing the Psychic Internet," and that was about 10 years of psychic work I did before remote viewing, where we were essentially launching myself as and a group of psychics that we used to work together used to launch ourselves out there into like the universe and just try to have conversations with all different kinds of beings to see what we could find. And um this is where some of that my theories come from, really, because I was told certain things. But during those encounters, I encountered beings of light that wanted to help, wanted to make us move to a new epoch of humanity. But there were also shadow like type, dark, evil kind of intent creatures that were very much more selfish and base in their intentions, and they didn't want humans to develop in any way. So I've seen both sides. I think that's happening at all levels, above ground, above space, and down here on Earth as well. That there is this there's multiple battles between light and darkness or black and white. Everything trying to shift in this balance, kind of universal balance kind of thing.
Yeah, but based off of at least what the theory that I told you, and you look at all the government whistleblower information and the technology that we've been receiving, it seems like it's been negative technology for humanity in regards to like karma, like weapons. We've been getting a lot of weapons and technology and relating to weapons. We've
But
been getting
maybe that's just when humans are mutating it. I mean, if the technology probably exists for free energy throughout the entire world, but that's being kept from us by humans, not well, humans and aliens, because they could
yeah.
give it to us as a gift. They could literally land anywhere and say, "Here's free energy for everyone," and give it, but they don't, which worries me in itself. It doesn't seem like the non-humans have any interest in giving us technology, and even medical technology. They obviously know that there are people dying here from things like cancer and stuff, and we've seen from some of the abductee stories
They
that
can
those
get rid of it.
abductees claim that they've been cured of diseases. So if they have that technology, why aren't then one of the questions I have to ask is why haven't they landed somewhere and saying, hey, here's a technology that can cure all your diseases. Have good with it. Use it to your best ability. So that I have to be honest, that kind of thing does worry me, and that these non-humans do not seem to want to give us technology that could do massive global good things for humanity.
Yeah, so the only way I've been able to make sense of it is through some type of karmic understanding of the simulation that we live in. If we do take that as a reality and truth, then the more benevolent types of entities aren't able to influence, or there is karmic retribution for influencing our development. And the negative entities seem to have the fallen angels seem to have done some type of agreement with these demons where they're not too worried about the karmic influences and impact that they're influencing onto to humanity. And then in that circumstance, most of the things that they're working on and releasing to us, they don't want us to advance because they want us to continuously enter into this cycle of feeding into their being their power source, being their energy source of like elevating themselves to more powerful levels. And the free energy and withholding from a lot of the sessions I have with other friends that are not remote viewers but like psychics and different types of tarot card readers, they're saying that not ex- humanity isn't always trying to just do bad things to each other. A lot of times we're just being manipulated, like you mentioned,
Mhm.
where we just
Yeah.
are told that if you don't do this, oh, something bad is going to happen in 5 years, or another higher being is going to come down, or our boss is
Mhm.
going to come down. So you got to do this, and they end up doing these things. Uh, Likely, like you mentioned, free energy is available. If free energy is available, why isn't it being released? I think I've been discussing and debating this with our friends. Free energy would remove the the need for currency because currency, how it's being utilized, is
Mhm.
as a means to transact to purchase energy so you can produce other things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this would destroy the entire system that the fallen angels and demons have helped us develop to kind of enslave us into this
Mhm.
feeding cycle for them. And they can't have that happen. So even if we want to release it, they will threaten us to a point where we won't be able to release it. And I kind of feel weird saying that because it's kind of like saying, "Oh yeah, the Illuminati, they're good people. They're just being pressured," and it's like they're probably
Mhm.
not good people, but at the same time,
Yeah.
they may not be all trying to do the decisions that they want. They may be forced to do it. At least that's my take
Mhm.
on it. I feel like we
Yeah.
would elevate to very very high levels, like what is being described in these ancient texts and the religious scriptures. We would probably ascend really really high and yeah, they probably don't really want that.
It is an interesting question, isn't it? I can't really give you the answers to it other than what I've been told about the balance, the balance of the universe thing. Uh, I just, yeah, I just don't subscribe to the karma thing, and I, I
But it
guess I
is
just hope.
written in many of the. I wasn't religious until I started looking. I mean, I don't consider myself religious, maybe more spiritual, but it's written in all of the religious scriptures. There's like a tallying of the good
Well,
and bad deeds and karma.
yes, but that can be done in a way that it's not punishing. I don't think the universe will punish you for your actions.
But you don't think it's a way to rebalance? Because according to what the karmic cycle is like, let's say you kill somebody and then that person they died at 16. They were supposed to live to 100 years old. You took off 84 years of their life. You impacted their
Well,
parents and all of their friends and family, and that tallies up to maybe like 2,000 years, and you're stuck down
did you
there.
though?
Hmm?
You have to bear in mind that there might have been a universal plan for you to kill that person and that person to die at the age of 16 so that they learned a lesson and their family learned other lessons that they had to learn on this life, so that might have been the plan.
Yeah, it could be. It, it definitely could be, but yeah, it's that's
I don't
another way to
My
look
way
at
of
it.
looking at the universe is that I don't see as you would, you make mistakes, we all make mistakes. I don't see that the universe would um punish me for making mistakes. It would say, okay, you made a mistake, look, this is where you went wrong, go back and try it again.
What if you don't see it as a punishment and you just see it as a learning experience and like you're you're meant to make as many mistakes as you're meant to make, and the best way to learn it, like the way that it's described and how I always consider is like when you make a really bad mistake, you get really bad karmic retribution that makes you remember the mistake, whether it's in like at least in this lifetime. I always assumed it was this lifetime. I never really thought about anything afterwards. I'm like, okay, if you let's say you you tell a whole bunch of lies, right? And then the all of these different lies come back to haunt you, and then you get caught in some of these lies, and it breaks all of these relationships. Well, that's your karmic retribution, and you get paid for that.
Yeah, I just yeah, it's just not part of my in my thinking, my existence. I just don't see it. Like there are bad people that do bad things, but I don't see them
Getting
being
punished.
having anything. Do you know what I mean? Like like Putin, for example. He's gone to war. He's killed hundreds of thousands of people. People starving. I don't see him being. How's he being punished? What bad things are happening to him? He's still living a life of luxury, being president of a country, doing whatever he wants.
Yeah, yeah. We need more information to understand the structure and the rules. But
Yeah,
at least that's like around the scientific community. There's only like so much information you can get because of the
yeah,
limitations of the like our science and our physics. So like where I'm trying to seek information is just historically through different scriptures and texts, and based off of that information that we have, that's what I've been able to extract. But we cannot corroborate it until we
yeah,
advance.
yeah. Anyone can do that, though. We can all reach out there. Even the people listening today, or people that are gonna watch this later on, they can read some of the books. They can meditate. Any of us can meditate and go out there and experience good and bad parts of the universe at all different levels. It doesn't take much to do that through just the simple act of meditation alone. We don't have to be world class psychics to be able to do this. We can all reach these levels of enlightenment. But I have to say this, that even when I was doing that, I did encounter some beings that don't want us to obtain that. So I do agree with you in that there are bad things out there trying to keep us down as humans, but there is also a balancing force out there in the universe which is glorious, that does want us
Yeah, yeah.
to
Let's
do
touch on
some
that,
stuff.
but instead of all this negative stuff, so we don't end on that.
Yeah, as I said, there's a balance. There is the negative, but there is also I have had conversations with angelic beings which were filled with so much love and enlightenment, which were just all in. I found them all inspiring, and it made me move on this pathway for my entire life. But as I said, it was a balance. In my book, I had terrible encounters with these dark ones that kind of stalked me everywhere I went, because they literally said that we don't want humans to reach these higher levels. But yeah, there was this beautiful range of creatures out there that did. So it's a bit like, I think it's I equate the whole thing to being a bit like a zoo, or a bit like the human zoo of the internet. You go on the internet any day of your life, and you can have a nice conversation with someone that's a beautiful soul, and the next person can be a right troll and be horrible to you. I think it's like that.
Yeah, I think Cliff High was also talking about the Kali Yuga cycle and how it's kind of circling back around, and
Yeah,
the it's turning in our favor now, at least in humanity's favor, more positively.
yeah,
And I've
yeah,
also got in one of my friends is in the chat that does tarot card readings for our project on a everyday Monday through Friday Dark Nemesis. He's been able to, because I've been focusing all of my questions not on like my love life and stuff like that, but more
yeah,
on like aliens and trying to understand fate and
yeah,
the simulation. And he's saying just like they're winning now, but the tides are turning, and there's
yeah,
things going against them now. So all of the like a lot of the more positive entities have kind of there's been many positive entities that have left, but it looks like with these tides that are turning, it should be shifting back in our favor. So potentially some of them will return, but we already see like the structure breaking down now that
yeah,
these negative forces have created. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this project here is to try to draw awareness and just try to manifest that in that direction. Just keep it
yeah,
going in that direction so we can continue to have more positivity
yeah.
in our future. But I very much appreciate your time, Daz. I know we have set up for an hour here. Is there anything that you want to touch upon before we wrap up?
No, other than people can. Yeah, as I said, I got the great resources out there on remoteview.com. There, huge amount of resources if they want to try this. And the only way to really experience this is try it for yourself. We can all do this. But not only just remote viewing, we all have the ability where we can go outside into the universe using meditation and our inbuilt skill sets of intuition and gut feeding. And we're all powerful enough to do this kind of stuff. But yeah, we're careful as well because there are, as we've discussed, light and dark things out there that have other intentions in mind. So you have to have your wits about you and be careful on what you're doing. But we're all powerful beings. We can go anywhere. We as remote viewers are perfect examples. Of we can go anywhere in time and space and get information and use that in our day to day lives. And I'm doing it every single day of my life.
Cool, cool. Then the last question. What is the experience like between remote viewing and astral projection? Is it a different type of experience?
It's absolutely completely different. Astral projection, you're usually, where you are asleep, you have the intent in your mind that you want to go out there. And there is a part of you that almost like an etheric part of the body that moves out and goes somewhere. Remote viewing, literally, I'm just sat, I could be doing remote viewing right now. I could be sat here. I do it on a tablet, so I could be sat here with my tablet, not knowing what the target is, doing it and having a conversation with you and drinking a coffee, not going anywhere because the remote viewers don't if the target was like Mars, I'm not actually going in any way to Mars getting the information. What we think is like with entanglement that all the information from everywhere in the universe, a bit like your theory of the simulation stuff, all the information a bit like the Matrix is everywhere. So the information about Mars is actually already within me and I'm just tapping into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
All of information about everywhere in the universe because we're all connected. Everything in the universe is connected. I'm connected to you. We're connected to the people listening this and all sorts at some base level. And I liken it to the force in the Star Wars films. There's a
Mm.
force that flows through everything in the universe, and I'm just tapping into that. And over my 27 years of honing myself, I can just listen to it a little bit better than most people.
Cool. And on that note, I'd like to end it on the force here, and we should all work with on becoming one with the force and kind of
Yeah.
harnessing that energy and being at peace with everything. So, thanks a lot for your time here today, Daz. I'm gonna stop the stream here and end the space recording.